Cam Ward is he's one of those guys, man. And
Yeah.
I think if the Tennessee Titans needed a quarterback or wanted a quarterback bad enough, he'd be the first pick. But I see him at a lot of places at number 2. He is a guy that has like 18,000 passing yards. You talk about the tape.
Right.
What else does this guy need to do? He's got it all. What could he possibly do here to maybe push him to number 1? Like, could the Titans see him and be like, we've got to get this guy?
Yeah. So their head coach is Brian Callahan, who was my quarterback coach when I was in Oakland with the Raiders. So I know Callie's going to want his own guy. So I do think Cam is going to go in this number 1 pick. I'd be shocked if he's not the number 1 pick in this draft. And that's no disrespect to Shedeur. I think Shedeur is more than capable. I really think Shedeur is going to go third to the Giants. I think it's going to be Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and then Shedeur.
Wow.
But the big reason with Cam is because it's not even what you see on tape. All these guys can throw. All these guys can play. And I told you this after I watched him in the spring game, Big E. I was like, this kid's going to be different. He's going to be special. And, I mean, the reason he got an invite to New York is because he's an alpha dog. And I think anytime I talk to scouts and I ask them about Cam Ward, they talk more about his mindset and about his personality versus what we see on tape. Of course, we all see the back shoulder throws and, making plays in the pocket and running around and, ad-libbing like Patrick Mahomes does in the NFL. Now, he'll have to taper some of that back because the talent's going to be a lot better in the NFL, but he'll get used to that. I think it's the mantra that he carries. It's when you go to these teams, you have to be the CEO at quarterback, man. And I didn't even realize that until I maybe went to another place and I saw how they treated and how they walked around. And I felt like Cam kind of already has and harnesses that type of personality. I mean, this dude literally changed the program at the University of Miami, the University of Miami. This is not like it's no offense to anybody else, but this is big time stuff. And he made the U look like they looked back in the early 2000s. And so for me, I think that kind of reverberates more than what you're even going to see on tape. It's just the mentality and the mantra that this kid carries. And his future is really bright. So I do think he goes number 1 to Tennessee.
That is fascinating, EJ, especially with your firsthand knowledge with the coaching staff there. When you look at the combine for Cam, he's a guy, I think we know he is an athletic guy, but he maybe won't stand up when you look at some of the guys in terms of like, he's probably not going to be the fastest quarterback or whatever it is, but he's got enough, right? So where do you think he can gain the most? Is it meeting with the teams? Is it if he runs the 40? Is it throwing the ball? Like, where do you think he can really gain?
Well, you can still gain if he does decide to throw because you can kind of hush up anybody that might have questions about arm strength, which I don't know how you have those questions if you watch him play. So, yeah, I mean, you can still check a box, really. Be accurate. Don't spray any out routes. This stuff is routes on air. So, really, you should be able to hit these throws, not blindfolded. And that sounds ridiculous, but like, pretty easily. And so for him, yeah, the meetings I think is probably gonna be more important than what we actually may or may not see if he does decide to not throw and all that kind of stuff. And then the 40, I think that's overdrawn or overblown for a kid like Cam Ward. He's athletic enough. You can watch the tape. His fast defense is in the ACC. Fast defense for University of Florida, the first game he had for the Canes. He'll be fine as far as speed. Like a kid like Jalen Milroe needs to run fast because he didn't have a great week in Mobile throwing the ball. So naturally, his thing is going to be athleticism. He's going to have to be like the Anthony Richardson in this draft to jump up and get into that consideration for potentially being the 3rd or 4th quarterback. Riley Leonard out of Notre Dame, he needs to run fast. The athletic guys need to be athletic. They need to be fast. They run 4.8s, 4.7s. It's going to hurt their draft stock. But Cam Ward, it won't hurt him at all.
That's a great point. Great point that it can, increase you. But a guy of this nature, I think there's just
he's going 1 through 3. Like he's not going to be on the board after pick 5.
Correct.
He's out of there.
100% agree with you. One thing that is interested me all year because I love it, but also there's times where you're like, what are you doing? And you just kind of brought it up there. Is his ability to ad lib. And listen, college is what it is. You can get away with a lot of stuff. There's a ton of guys out there that aren't sniffing Sundays. At this next level, that's how you lose games. That's how people get fired. How do you coach it? Like, because we see what we do with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes and maybe even a little bit, some other quarterbacks there where it is who they are. And you do need to kind of deal with it. But I think some coaches maybe want to pull a little bit back. What do you expect there, especially if he goes to Tennessee and that's a guy you know well?
Yeah, well, if he does go to Tennessee, I think you have that conversation with Cam and say, hey, look, here's the parameters of what we want to get done in our offense. But I also think now these younger coaches like a Cali, he's going to let Cam be Cam. And I'm pretty sure Callie's going to have a conversation with Shannon Dawson and say, hey, look, what kind of guy is he? How does he like to be coached? How did you have conversations with him on the field? How did you make adjustments for him? You know, these coaches, I think these younger coaches, right, are trying to change maybe their philosophy for who they have. I think they realize, like, let me figure out what this kid can do versus what he cannot do. When I was coming out, they were trying to kind of harness on what you can't do. They want you to look like Joe Montana from 1993 or something like that. I'm like, coach, it's 2013. Like, why are we doing I'll leave that alone. And so I feel like with the younger coaches, and you know what I'm talking about, we've had these conversations, younger coaches will embrace more of who you are as a player versus try to change who you are. Now, again, you got to reel some of it in. That's why I said, like, you can't put the ball up and, you know, throw it up like you did against Cal, and the kid had a pick six. Like, that doesn't need to be on your film. I hated seeing that for Cam because I'm like, he's better than that. But you know, for him, when he gets to the league, I think there's going to be a level of grace where you allow him to make some mistakes, but ultimately you got to let him play free because that's what got him to here essentially be the number one pick in the draft.
That's a great point, EJ. I think you're seeing this like revolution where, hey, let's harness what this guy can do. Let's really play into his strengths. Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen
Lamar
Hurts.
Jackson, Jalen Hurts.
Great examples of that. Yeah.
That's what coaches are doing, and it's because they're younger. It really is, KG.
Yeah.
It's not because there's this new innovative thought. I think more coaches just like, man, like we can do it different ways. We don't have to.
Right.
There's 20 different ways you can skin a cat, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be a cookie cutter, John Elway, Steve Young. You know, that's not how these guys look anymore. The athletes are different. Yeah.
There's not just one way, for sure.
And those guys are athletic too, but like it's just different. It's completely different now.